Welcome to part 2 of classes and objects. And in part 1, we talked about the relationships between classes and objects, and we started coding and building a project. And at the end of part 1, we had created this particular, what's going to be called a method in the new class 1 that we've added to our project. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some space out of here, and I'm going to add another method here, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about methods later, but I want you just to see the very basics. And if you can make this click, if you can make the light come on here, it's really going to help you if you're not familiar with this. And so I'm going to do another method here, a public void. That means it's not going to return anything. We'll talk about that later. And we're going to call this one do that. So we're going to have a do this and a do that. Now, if I do this correctly, I should be able to just jump down there and put all this inside the braces. Okay, and so I'm going to do system windows message box show. I'm going to actually do all this again. So I'm just going to copy that, then come right down here and paste it. And I'm going to change this right here to do that. Okay, so what's going to happen, we're going to have a method called do this, and if you call it, it's going to give you a message box that says class 1. Okay, there's our class that we've created here, was used to do this, and if we call the do that method, it's going to put up a message box that says class 1 was used to do that. All right, now let's go back to our form. Now we want to create object 1 here, so let's double click on that, and let's go to our button handler. And anytime somebody clicks on button 1, we want to basically do this or do that. So let's make it a little easier. Let's call this, instead of create object 1, let's do object 1 do this. And then on this one, whoa, I double clicked, I didn't want to. Let's go to text, and let's object 2 do that. Okay, so we want to have object 1 do this. Okay, so on the button click 1, we're going to instantiate an object. So we're going to use the class that we have, class 1. Notice right here IntelliSense sees it, and we're going to create a variable called a. So we're creating a variable a, and its data type is class 1, and we're going to set a equal to a new instance of class 1. Okay, now this is telling the compiler when the program runs, I want you to create a variable out there. It's going to be a reference type, so it's going to be on the heap, and it is going to be a new instance. It's going to become an object that's based on class 1. Now notice what happens immediately. If I type a and hit period, not comma, but period, the program can automatically, the compiler can see into that class and see that there is a do that and do this. Okay, and so what did we say we were going to do on this first button? We were going to do this. Okay, and so we are going to call the do this method. So I'll double click on that. Open and close. We're not taking any parameters for now. We'll talk about that later. And there we go. Okay, on button 2, we don't have anything yet, right? So let's go look at our form and let's run this. We'll click on start here. It'll compile it up and run it, and let's see what happens. Now, if I click the button for object 1 do this, it will run that code, create the object, then the object will execute the do this function. So let's click on it, and notice class 1 was used to do this. It worked, right? Let's go look at what happened. When I clicked on this button right here, this code ran, right? We created a variable a of a class 1 data type. We used new class 1 to instantiate a, and then we called the do this method that was coded into class 1, and we used the a object to do it, right? Now, let's do another one. Okay, now for the button 2, if you click on button 2, we're going to use class 1. Once again, same blueprint. This time we're going to use a variable of b. So we're creating a variable b of a data type class 1, setting it equal to a new instance of class 1 once again. And I fat fingered it once again. Okay, now notice when I call up object B and hit period, notice it's a different object, but it still has the same methods. Don't worry about these others. We'll call do that. open and close our parentheses in case we had any parameters, and it's telling it we have no parameters. We'll talk about parameters later. And just like that, we're going to do that. So we're going to use the same class to create two different objects in memory. And the way we're going to know that we're working with one object or another, the first one is going to do this, the second one's going to do that. So let's run this, and you will notice that the first object calls do this. This creates A, and class 1 was used to do this. And that's our A object, and object 2 is our B object, and it is used to run the do that method. Okay, and if you look in code here, you can see the do this was run off of object A, the do that was run off of object B. Build this, play with it. This will be out there in your work files. You can load this up in your own environment. Just simply copy the folder. If you'll notice out here on the solution, it tells you users mark long documents. You can go out to that location. You can see that file. Just copy that entire folder over onto your drive off the work files, and you should be able to double click on the .sln file and open it up and run it just like I see it. What I'd rather you do is code it up along with me here, play with it, make it work in your brain as you're working the code. And when you get your head around this, if you don't already, you'll have a big jump start on object-oriented programming. And we're going to build on this now for the rest of the class and talk about the different things we can do with these classes and these objects. So let's go.